we're watching some of this stuff come to pass as we're studying it, and it's pretty amazing. Let's look at the rest of Revelation chapter 12. I think we stopped around the time that verse 7. Now war arose in heaven. All right, this is all around the time of the 1260 days that the people of Israel will be protected by God in the wilderness. And the dragon has come to make war with the woman we see as Israel. And now war arose in heaven. Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. And he was defeated, and there was no longer a place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, the ancient serpent who's called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He has been thrown down to the earth. The angels were thrown down with him. Now, I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power of the kingdom of our God and authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of the brethren has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before God. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they have loved not their lives even unto death. Those verses that we just read are the very center of the book of Revelation. So therefore, in a chiasm structure, this is the focal point of the whole book. And we see it said 3 times that Satan and his angels are thrown down, thrown down, thrown down. This is the beginning of the end for Satan, in at least in this context. I think the beginning of the end was the cross, but now that we're almost at the end here, he has a very short time. He's thrown out of heaven, and this is not hearkening back to the beginning of time when Satan fell. No, this is actually going to happen. He's going to assault heaven. Michael the archangel stands up with his angels and fights. There's real spiritual warfare in the heavenly places, in the unseen realm. And this is what's going to happen. And when that happens in heaven, he gets thrown down to earth. I think this is where the abomination of desolation will take place. He's going to come down to earth and do his dirty deed and try to become the Messiah for the Jews. And then he's going to destroy he's going to already have done that, but now he's going to try to destroy the Jews, as we're going to see here. He's thrown down, but those who conquer him do so through the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, for not loving their lives unto death. So those who are martyred by the Antichrist because they loved Christ more than their own lives, and that's the only way to conquer this man. You don't conquer him by protest, by resistance, or any of that other man-made stuff. No, it's by faith in Christ and the willingness to die for his name. Now, we looked at the idea of the rapture having already probably occurred before this or shortly after this. I'm not taking a hard stand on either one yet because, well, we just see God's people still being hotly pursued throughout the next few chapters. And it could be that those are people who were left behind, who finally embrace their last chance to embrace Christ, and that those people will give their lives, and that's the only way out. That's the only way of escape. Those who were raptured, who were already prepared, already ready, already watching for Christ, already saved, born again, God has rescued them from this time of trial, this great tribulation that's coming upon the whole earth. Because now that the focus is on Israel and destroying her, this is the time of Jacob's trouble. And I think by this time the church is already out, or shortly about to be taken out. Exactly the timing, I don't know. I'm not going to put a pin on a date or a point on the timeline exactly, because I really don't know. And I think there's great theories that go around explaining when that should be or could be. And I think we should just take them all as possibilities and keep our eyes open no matter what happens if we live through this. And another note about this is the devil being thrown down 3 times here. There's an observation that I've made starting chapter 11, where we have the Ark of the Covenant revealed in heaven. The only time the Ark of the Covenant was ever utilized was once a year at the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. On that day, the high priest would go into the Ark of the Covenant and put the blood on the mercy seat for the forgiveness of the nation of Israel. Different than Passover, where every person, every family would kill a lamb and eat it. And originally put the blood on the doorposts for the individual salvation of each person in that home, and specifically the firstborn. But the Day of Atonement is for the national sins of Israel. This is for the national sins. So I think this is where we're heading, and in the time frame, whatever year this will be, it'll be around the time of the Day of Atonement, which is a day of fasting and repentance and grief, a day of darkness. A lot of description on the Day of Atonement that way. And it's a day to afflict yourself and examine yourself and seek the forgiveness of the Lord for the nation of Israel. And I think that's what's going to happen in this final Day of Atonement, that Israel will turn to the Lord in grief, because they're going to be driven out and they're going to be pursued by the Antichrist to be killed. And they will turn to Jesus and he will come and save them. And so the imagery of the Ark of the Covenant is there in chapter 11, verse 19. Then God's temple in heaven was opened, and the Ark of the Covenant was seen in the temple. And there was flashings of lightning and rumblings and peals of thunder and earthquake and heavy hail. So we have that picture of that day of judgment. And then when we see the throwing down of Satan in the next chapter here, I just can't help but think of the scapegoat, which was part of the tradition, or part of the ceremony of the Day of Atonement. It was, you would lay all the sins on the goat that would be sacrificed, and then you would take another goat, transfer all those sins onto him, and then drive him out into the wilderness not to come back, because it taught the doctrine of expiation, where the sins of God are not the sins of God, I'm sorry, the wrath of God for the sins of men is now removed from the people, and put on Christ, and then he's driven to death. And what they would do is they would take the scapegoat and they would drive him out to a cliff and throw him over a cliff, and he was cast down to make sure that he died outside the city and to never come back and bring the sins back. So we see the devil here being thrown down. And there's also just another imagery that comes to mind on this, and I could be off on this. This may not be God's intention at all, but it seems to me that this is where it is. When Jesus was sacrificed on the cross, Judas, who is a type of Antichrist, by the way, he's the only other person called the son of perdition. Judas went outside and hung himself, and Peter tells us in the book of Acts, chapter 2, that after he hung himself, that he fell down from where he was hanging down onto the rocks and was cast down, and all his bowels burst out of him. So it's a gruesome scene. And I couldn't help but think of the sacrificial lamb and the scapegoat in that scene as well. So I think we kind of see that here. And the only reason I say that is because I have a suspicion that Christ's actual return will be on the Day of Atonement for the people of Israel. And that's when they'll cry out to him, or they'll cry out to him prior, and then on the Day of Atonement, he will fulfill the Day of Atonement by coming down and rescuing his people. Now, the Feast of Trumpets is only like 10 days prior to the Day of Atonement. And I think maybe the Feast of Trumpets, which is the announcement of judgment to come, may be the day that the abomination of desolation takes place. I'm just saying, maybe. That could be the day. Lots of bad things seem to happen on the Feast of Trumpets, as even historically. I don't have it written down, so I can't give you all the facts right now, but lots of interesting things seem to happen on Rosh Hashanah, which is also the Feast of Trumpets. So perhaps when the trumpet sounds, that's the seventh trumpet perhaps, and that's Feast of Trumpets, that's the Day of Atonement, or not, I'm sorry, it's 10 days prior to the Day of Atonement. That might be the Abomination of Desolation. That might be what's going on right here. Just saying loosely, all those things seem to be related. All right, so let's move on. Verse 12, therefore rejoice, O heaven, and you who dwell in them, but woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows his time is short. Well, if the Feast of Trumpets is only 10 days away from the Day of Atonement, his time is very short. He has 10 days. He has 10 days. Maybe that's how many days there is. And there's a little hint to 10 days in Revelation chapter, let's see here. It's one of the churches that he speaks of here in Revelation chapter 1, verse 9. He talks to the church of Smyrna and he says, I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the slander of those who say that they are Jews but are not, but the synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, and you may be tested, and for 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death. I will give you the crown of life. And he who has an ear, let him hear. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death. I really think these are tied together. There's some significance here. The church of Smyrna is told that they will suffer tribulation for 10 days. And people tried to figure out, well, 10 is a number of completion. Everything's a number of completion. 7's a number of completion. It's like, maybe it's really 10 days. Maybe they're really going to have a 10. And maybe in history, the actual church of Smyrna did have a 10-day tribulation. I think they actually did. But this is all pattern. Remember, prophecy is pattern. So maybe this is related to the 10 days between the Feast of Trumpets and the Day of Atonement. And those who are believers who are resisting the Antichrist are going to have tribulation for 10 days. And they will not be hurt by the second death because they will conquer this Antichrist by the word of their testimony and the blood of the Lamb, and not loving their lives even unto death. If we have to live through this, if we're around for this, just know the end of that tribulation will come soon. Either we'll be raptured out after, or if we're not raptured after or before, then we endure through it for the 10 days until Christ raptures us, or until we die. Either way, we have to resolve that we will stand up against this man, not by force, not by any of that, but by the word of the testimony of our faithfulness to Christ. All right, so then the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth. There's the fourth time he's mentioned, that he's thrown down. He pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. So we saw already that the woman was Israel. She gave birth to the male child, probably speaking of Christ. But the woman was given the two wings of a great eagle so she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness. This reminds me of Exodus 19:4, where the Lord tells Israel, don't you know that I took you out on eagle's wings and took you out of Egypt on eagle's wings? So God is that protector, that like mother eagle that bears up his children on his wings and takes them to safety and flies them away from the serpent, just as God had taken the people of Israel and bore them up on eagle's wings and took them out from the oppression of Pharaoh. So we have that imagery there. And they will be nourished there for a time, times, and half a time. Of course, we saw that in Daniel. That's 42 months, 1,260 days. It's already been very explicitly defined for us here how long they're going to be hiding and being protected by the Lord. The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood. So the dragon, the devil, is going to create a way to try to kill these people by flooding them. You think, oh, that's symbolic language. I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, we have Daniel chapter 9, verse 26, where it talks about the abomination of desolation. And it says that the end shall come with a flood, and then desolations are decreed. The end will come with a flood. We have a flood right here. It's probably a real flood that's going to try to come after and destroy and kill these people. But the earth came to help the woman. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured out of his mouth. So the Lord miraculously uses nature. I mean, he uses nature to fight against his enemies by, throwing down hailstones. And now he's going to open the earth, swallow up the water that is meant to drown these people, and thwarts his plans. And so then the dragon was furious with the woman because he can't kill her. The Lord Jesus is protecting. And he went off to make war with the rest of her offspring, of those who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Jesus. And he stood on the sand of the sea. We had pictures of Christ earlier, who stood with one foot in the sea and one foot on the sand. Now we have the devil here standing on the sand of the sea, kind of like right there on the border, where he's only allowed to go so far and no further. Now, who are the rest of her offspring? Could it be other Jews? It could be. I think these are other believers that come from the Jewish nation, which would be Christian people who hold the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus. Who else does that? It's not the Jews. They have not held to the testimony of Jesus. They're barely coming to understand their salvation right now. But those who had already done so, who had already had the testimony of Jesus, well, those are God's people. Those are Christian people. And the devil's going to go after them now. So this may be during that 10-day period. I alluded to maybe a 30-day period as well, because we see in Daniel 9 or Daniel 12 that the Antichrist is given 1,290 days, but half of the week is 1,260 days. So I think there may be overlap there. Maybe this is a 30-day period, maybe it's a 10-day period, but his time is short. That's all we know. So that dragon goes after the Jewish people, does not succeed. God protects them supernaturally using the earth to swallow up a flood, and rescues her like he rescued his people in Exodus. And they're in a place in the wilderness, which I think is south by the Dead Sea area. That's in modern day Jordan, I believe. And the Bible speaks of Bozrah. And that will be where they hide. And God will keep them protected for the next 3.5 years. And supernaturally protect them, because they are the ones who will come to embrace Messiah, know who he is. Finally, the nation of Israel will be saved, as Romans 12:26 states. Many Jews will be killed during this time, though. But that remnant who have been listening to the two witnesses, who have been listening to the 144,000, they will be preserved, and they will go into the millennial kingdom as mortal human beings who've survived, and will repopulate the earth. And there may be other survivors that are not Jewish as well, because we're going to have all nations represented in the millennial kingdom. And that, now we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're not even at the abomination of desolation quite yet. It's almost here, or it's being figured here and then spelled out some more in the next chapter, which is where we're going to be here in chapter 13, which I think is the actual abomination of desolation, the rolling out of 666, all in chapter 13. Ooh, 13, a very unlucky number. That could be a coincidence. All right. Well, let's go ahead and stop here. Oh man, we're already 20 minutes in. So please like and subscribe, and can't wait to see you at the next chapter as we get deeper. All right. Talk to you later.